Welcome back, everybody, to Street Economics. We've got some special curated content for you today. It goes a little bit further, almost a full episode, talking about Chinatown. And does Miami have a real Chinatown or potential for a real Chinatown? So here's a quick test. What makes a place great? Festivals and marketing? Or daily life that you can feel and you can experience without having to have a banner tell you what it is. And so in our latest episode on the Music Cities podcast, we talk about baby metal, innovation, market creation, and being unapologetically yourself. And so today we're taking that idea to the street, literally to 163rd Street in North Miami Beach. And it's kind of interesting. It's an interesting coincidence that it's the baby metal innovation framework that led us to take the lessons of that about being yourself, not trying to be the next Austin, but how that evolved in our thinking into the Chinatown concept. It's just a curiosity. It's a coincidence that you take, baby metal, Asian fusion of J-pop, Japanese pop with heavy metal, and it kind of keeps us in Asia. But there on 163rd Street in North Miami Beach, you've had this authentic Asian market corridor that's evolved, and it's quietly doing what manufactured branding can't do. It's building a real destination from the ground up. So this is an ECOSINT Special, ECOSINT, Economic Open Source Intelligence, one of our approaches that we take here at Street Economics. And it's economic open source intelligence for places that don't want to be copycats. We're going to show you how North Miami Beach has a real Chinatown energy, why North Miami's official Chinatown concept sputtered, and what a practical kind of do it tomorrow plan concept looks like to tighten the fabric without forcing it and without faking the culture. See, baby metal didn't ask for permission to invent their own category. They just did it. Cities that win do the same. They stop chasing after being the next Austin or being the next Silicon, whatever, Silicon Prairie, Silicon Beach, Silicon Alley. And they find their own purple cow. They find their own unfair advantage. What makes them authentic? What makes them special? What do they have that is hard to replicate? They double down on what's already in the market that either people don't know about, or maybe they know about it, but they don't know the full potential of it. And that's what we have on 163rd Street. So what is the first act? Well, the first act is a Saturday morning run. A mom comes down from Aventura and she needs a certain special fish sauce. Well, she eats lunch a couple of plazas down, grabs some pastry somewhere, pops into an herbal shop next door. It's 3 stops, 1 parking cycle trip. The same behavior pattern that powers Little Saigon in Los Angeles, Bel Air Boulevard in Houston. On 163rd Street today, those 3 stops can be separated by half a mile each. You have to cross a dicey arterial. The ingredients are there, but the connective tissue, the wayfinding, the safer crossings, a couple of visible anchors, and a shared story, that's what's thin. Every market-made Asian district has the same flywheel. Supermarket acres, they pull in that daily and that repeat foot traffic. Around those anchors, you have food and services that cluster. And then you have the complementary tenants, the tea, the herbal salons, bakeries, all of these other things that help fill it in. And then that identity all of a sudden becomes obvious without having to build an arch or issue a big proclamation. So North Miami Beach has all of those authentic ingredients. It has the markets and the businesses and the customers that are along 163rd Street, but spread out in different nodes. And so the idea, what's needed is to stitch them together, not try and stage it. So now there's cautionary tales about this, and there's one right next door. A few miles away to the south, North Miami tried to legislate a Chinatown Cultural Arts and Innovation District. Branding by committee, not by the merchants, not by the customers, not by the market. There wasn't a dense existing cluster to start from. Politics get messy. The lesson is you can't proclaim a soul for a place. You earn it through the daily commerce, through safety, through a great place that people want to be, and a story that people can relate to, and they recognize that story because they live it. So your line in the sand for doing this sort of thing, it's simple. It's no gate. It's not a declaration. Let the market lead. Government, cities, you're there. Remove the friction. Set the table. So what does a playbook look like for this for 163rd Street? And you'll find this in our Patreon here. You need a district identity without the declaration. It's a merchant-led soft brand. It's a simple Google optimized map, maybe a logo script, and maybe a merchant kit. This is something that doesn't take a lot of money. It doesn't take a long time to ship or to create. You can come up with a placeholder name for what you want to call it. How's it going to appear on a map? But the merchants can help you with that. Don't try and create that identity from City Hall or with a consultant. Another one is a cadence. Create a cadence with a night market. These are great, especially when you have an Asian market-made Asian district. A night market can make all of the difference. Quarterly, monthly, rotate it among the willing plazas that are up there. Create a dessert alley. K-pop, J-pop, cultural performances. Make it merchant first. Make sure that your outside vendors are complementary. Do not cannibalize. Again, over the course of a year, this doesn't take a lot of money. It doesn't take a lot of time. It takes maybe a couple of months, 10 weeks to kind of plan and program and get ready for your first event. And then you create something. You create a place people want to be, and people start coming, and that starts reinforcing that identity. Third, you can strengthen the clustering around the Asian markets. Micro tenant improvement grants and fast tracking permitting for either grocery expansion, things that help keep the shoppers who are coming to the market in the area longer. You get that longer dwell time, you get more receipts for your businesses, you get more repeat businesses. Fourth, help set the table, and importantly, fix the friction. Safety, shared parking, quick build crosswalks, driveway consolidation opportunities at your key blocks, cross access, shared parking, things that protect the walking paths, that full path of travel that your customers and your pedestrians and all are going to have to take. Make it as easy and convenient as possible. Think about your more compact, dense Chinatowns or Asian districts and how easy it is to go from one business to the other. We need to create that here in a corridor setting where you have different nodes. Think about in Las Vegas, just west of the Strip, you have a corridor-based Chinatown. Much denser, many more businesses than what we have in North Miami. The shopping plazas are entirely made up of Asian businesses, but still, it can be it can be inspired and give some indication on the types of fixes that can help reduce friction. Then at that point, you can start thinking about what does wayfinding and pylon and co-branding and different things need. What are the blade signs for our businesses? Can you create co-branded decals? What is the bilingual, trilingual? What are the different languages that we need to think about to help reinforce the personality and the authenticity of this district? And then what are the merchant services? That would be sort of your sixth quick opportunity. Bilingual opportunities for engaging with merchants in a bilingual way. Small facade or signage grants. Group purchasing, different sort of almost co-op type things that you can work with businesses to create. But again, how do you serve this merchant community from City Hall? And then are there regulatory tune-ups that might be needed? I haven't really looked at the code, so I'm not sure. But some ideas are, be flexible on your multilingual signage. And maybe there's some pre-approved templates that you can work with the business community and international chambers. Are there for some fast track permitting opportunities that can be thought about and be implemented? Shared parking, cross access MOUs. So a way to look at outdoor seating opportunities and parklet opportunities. So, you can get something going that doesn't force Chinatown to accelerate beyond what it has organically become, doesn't make it look more like a manufactured place, lets it continue to grow organically, but again, removes those frictions and helps set the table to do so. You could do some probably credible pilots there for $250,000 to $300,000 in the first year. Across all of those different places that I mentioned, $500,000 maybe. The other thing I'll tell you is I want to tell you, how did we get to this? We got to this by using our specialized AI. Our AI that's trained specifically in how Business Flare thinks, how we do our work. So how do you make sure that you stay on track and that it doesn't turn into something it shouldn't be, that it doesn't turn into something that looks staged, that's something that loses its authenticity, something that looks manufactured? Got to figure out and engage and find an element of merchants advisory, call it a council, call it a steering committee. And I really don't want to. It can be very informal. It doesn't even have to be a formal monthly meeting committee. It can be just identifying who are those key stakeholders that we need to stay engaged with. Who can we bounce ideas off of? Who can we brainstorm with? Who can we go do a periodic check-in to make sure that we're on the right track and that we're staying the course? And so it's like a corridor merchant council, and you want to capture your different Asian representations there, whether it's Chinese or Japanese or Korean or Thai, Vietnamese. And find those voices that need to be engaged in some way, call it at the table. But maybe it's just sounding board. Make sure that you're able to communicate through them. Maybe it's not just merchants, maybe it's some of the plaza owners. But you need to make sure that you're letting them choose the brand elements and the themes when you're doing events. You've got to keep it merchant first. You've got to keep it real and authentic. If there's something that needs to be done, call it an event. If it can't be done merchant first, if it can't be done in that authentic way, don't force it. Don't do it. Step back. This thing has grown organically. It needs to continue to grow organically. Don't try to force it to be at a stage in that growth that it's not ready to be in. You want to prioritize your legacy and your immigrant-owned businesses. Work with your plaza owners that have already demonstrated an understanding of this by leasing to the businesses that have created this cluster. You could encourage longer leases with some moderate escalators, in exchange for TI grants, working with those property owners. You want to be able to create and maintain the cash flow uncertainty that exists in a marketplace that has that organic growth, because that's what's going to help that organic growth continue, not just a bunch of slogans and new names for a district. You can just find some basics to track. Pick 3 nodes and track foot traffic quarterly in those nodes. There's different things. You can use Placer. You can use location analytics to kind of figure that out. You can engage with your merchants and find out if you get to the point that there are events. You can engage with merchants to see how our sales, and you can even track movement of customers from place to place, especially on those event days. And you just need to make sure that you've got an ability, as you're doing this, to adapt quickly to what you see in the metrics you do decide to look at. And then look at other places. Are there comparable lessons? And not look for best practices and not look for case studies. Don't try and be someone else. But you can look for what are comparable lessons in some of the other market-made Asian markets. So in Las Vegas, in Orlando, so in Bel Air, I think it's Boulevard in Houston. You've got the Chinatown there, Asia Town, and you had that sort of grocery first logic that everything clustered around it. But what did the city focus on? The city focused on safety. They focused on signage. The identity followed the behavior. In Las Vegas, that's Spring Mountain Road. I was there. I've been to all of these over the past summer, and it's part of what has it front of mind. It just happened to end up in 5 or 6 different Asian districts around the country while I was traveling. But Spring Mountain Road is a merchant-led identity. There's a little bit of a nightlife cadence over there. Obviously, it's just like the Strip. The city safety, the crossings, amplifying the lighting, the physical plant, the physical environment, the public realm. And then Orlando, that intersection of Mills and Colonial, just on the north side of downtown. You've got soft branding there with a merchants association. It's not a huge district, but it's very dense and compact and very identifiable. You have some road diet elements. It could use a few more road diet elements, but it's getting there. And again, you have this cohesion without these big, heavy declarations. And so for 163rd Street, it's how you take those comparable lessons, not try and be Bel Air Boulevard, not try and be Spring Mountain Road, not try and be Mills and Colonial. But you can learn certain things from there to then be yourself. How do we take those lessons to make 163rd Street move into the tier that those other districts are in? But then you have to now, how do you find the will to do this? Because we can talk all about all of these great ideas and all of these different things. Just like we talk about with North Miami and the opportunity and potential to be a music city. You already have the Chinatown concept evolving and it's identifiable. I mean, people understand it, but it's not at that tier that we see in those other cities that we just mentioned. But is there the will to do those things that help accelerate its organic growth? There's a budget reality that has to be met to do this. Is there opportunity with the CRA? Is there opportunity with the city? If there is, how much? Are there willing partners? Are there centers on 163rd Street that are ready to collaborate on something like this? Are the more recent grocery anchors that are there? Is that who should we meet first? And are they going to be receptive to this? Is the community and are the customers, but more importantly, all of those Asian-based businesses ready to engage in something like this? That's a big question. So again, it comes down, is the city willing? And is the community willing? Is the marketplace willing and ready to do this? So, you can find that out pretty quickly. You can walk and mark with 10, say, merchants, pick a couple of blocks, pick one node to start on. You can convene, you can meet, you can engage with kind of the key plaza owners or markets that are sort of the make or break to finding the will to do this. And from there, you can start thinking about, how do we launch a soft brand? How do we start word of mouth in a soft brand? And then if you find that will and you find that interest, who's going to host Night Market 1? Who's going to program it? Who's going to manage it? Who's going to pre-enroll who's going to find and pre-enroll the vendors? So there has to be will by a lot of different people and different organizations to do those things that get you going. But if the will is there, it doesn't take a lot to get that acceleration going and to unleash that unfair advantage that exists in this corridor. Again, let's step back and go back to how this started with that episode on the Music Cities podcast about baby metal. Baby metal didn't hold a festival to prove that they existed. They built a sound no one could ignore. So on 163rd Street, that sound it's the bowls clinking. It's the sound of that crush of the produce crates. It's the chatter and the hum coming from the line waiting for desserts. So that's the brand. The job is to remove the friction so that that sound of economic development can be heard louder and louder. So that's our open source intelligence look at a Chinatown for Miami, which we already have in one form in North Miami Beach and in a different form in its potential. Unleash that unfair advantage that you have in North Miami Beach and be unique in South Florida. With that, thanks for listening. Let's do it.